Welcome to the last video in the 3-video Markstrat series. Hi, I'm going to talk a little bit about managing your firm and some of the stuff that you do and sort of how you do it, and just a little bit about getting started, logging on, stuff like that. So your objective, again, is to maximize the share price index. It can be thought of as stock price is the easiest thing to think about. And your stock price, if you are a real company, responds to all kinds of things, like market share, or are you growing, are you profitable, does it look like you have anything in the pipeline? When Steve Byers is here, he's talking about how you look at future cash flows and discount them back, right? So we're trying to figure out what you got going on. And like it works in the real world, Markstrat responds to different things, but you don't know exactly how responsive it is to some things and how much it isn't. And there's a very complicated algorithm in this thing that I don't know, and people have tried for years to figure out. But think of it the way that it works for real. If you are CEO of a publicly held company, you are trying to jack up your stock price pretty much all the time. And so you're trying press releases about new products, or you're telling everybody in the earnings report how great your earnings are, or how much your sales are up, or whatever, and you're trying to do that. And the same thing happens here. As you work through the simulation a few rounds, you'll see what it share price seems to respond more or less to, and make some decisions accordingly, just like you would in the real world. Now, it brings me to a quick point, and you'll find that Markstrat provides tons of data, and much of it can be imported directly into Excel, which is great, but you can spend an incredible amount of time analyzing stuff, and just analyzing and digging through and doing all this Excel work, and then, quite honestly, throw it away. And the reason is, there's so much data out there. What I would always encourage you to do is try to figure out what your strategy is, and then work back and go, well, what information do I need in order to support the strategy? And then go back into the data. So if, for example, your strategy is built on the sales force, you might want to look and see, well, how efficient is our sales force? So that's information that you want to get. So then you look back a little bit further and say, well, what data do I have? Well, I can figure out what sales are per salesperson and get some competitive information about the other guys out there and figure out sort of how effective are our salespeople. So that would be a directed sort of investigation, and you want to do those. Just be careful. There's tons of data. You could spend an incredible amount of time, and to very little. I want to talk for a minute about some of the decisions that you'll make in period 1. I have it set so that you can only make marketing mix, commercial team, and market research decisions. You can't bring out new products yet. You can't pull products off the market yet. So you won't be interfacing with R&D. And there's some limits also on the advertising that you can do. After the first round of decisions, I'll open the whole thing up, but this makes it a little bit more manageable coming in, and you don't accidentally delete all your brands. So let's talk for a minute about what you do in some of these situations. Each period, you will specify to manufacturing how many to make. Okay? And manufacturing excuse me, is able to adjust how many they make, plus or minus 20% from what you ask on the fly. They can also make massive changes year to year with no penalty. So for example, you could ask for 1 million of them one year and 0 the next, and it doesn't matter, or vice versa. But I want to talk about the plus or minus 20% a little bit and make sure that everybody understands that one. So in this example up here, your forecast is 180,000 So for however you did it, you came up with, we're going to sell 180,000 of those next year. And imagine you have 30,000 in inventory. So you request 150,000 for production. That's actually your decision. That's what you put into Markstrat. And let's say that actual sales were 154,000. So you thought it was going to be 180. You had 30 on hand. You asked for another 150,000, and it actually turned out to be 154. So what they would do then is reduce your production from what you asked, 150,000, to 124,000, because that's within the 20% possibility, and pull 30,000 out of inventory, sell the whole 154,000, and you didn't lose out on any sales, and you have no ending inventory. Let's look at option 2. Let's say that you forecast 110,000 this time instead of 180, and you have 30 in inventory like before. So being an MBA student, you can subtract 30 from 110, you got 80,000, produced that, or total production to create that many, and actual sales would have been 154,000. However, since you only asked for 80,000 and they could do 20% more, that meant they could make 96,000, which they added to your 30,000 in inventory, which is still less than what would have been sold, 154,000. So you actually lost out on selling 28,000, and it would say your ending inventory is 0, and Markstrat will send you a nice note that says something like, boy, we tried really, really hard, but we stocked out. Imagine scenario number 3. You have a very aggressive forecast. You say 230,000, that's how many we're going to sell, and you got 30,000 in inventory from last period. So that means you ask production to make 200,000. Sales are 154,000, like we said. They can only drop 20% off of 200,000, so that means they made 160,000, which is 6,000 more than you sold. So now your inventory went up 6,000. You have 36,000 in inventory, but you did sell 154,000. So if you think about it, think about the one with the lost sales where you didn't have enough product. You can get a guesstimate of what that is in Markstrat every time if that happens to you. And what you do is you look at purchase intention. So you can buy marketing research in this program, which is really nice, gives you a chance to experiment with some things. But one of the things you can buy is purchase intention. So it's looking out a year and it's asking people, what do you intend to buy? And then you can compare that to what you actually sold, what your market share was for real, and then get some feel for how many sales you actually lost. Now, some of the sales went to the competitors, and some of them are just gone. They'll never buy it. If you imagine your own behavior, if you see an ad for a flat panel TV at Fred Meyer and you go, boy, I want that LG ultra high definition TV. It has a great price. It's just the size I want. And you trot over to Fred Meyer, maybe with the ad in hand, and they don't have it, right? They stocked out, so they don't have it. Some people will buy a different TV because they're buying a TV, even though the ad brought them in for something else. So you lose those forever. And other people will say, no, I'm going to wait. And a lot of times people that wait, their circumstances change and they never buy. So if you think about times when you have intended to buy a car or something and you didn't for whatever reason, and you go, well, I'll buy one next year. And then circumstances changed and you didn't buy one next year either. So that's kind of what happens when you stock out. Every year in Markstrat, you set the retail price. And I want to emphasize that you are setting the retail price. The retail price is not the money that your firm gets. Okay, and I'm going to have to draw on the board here. So here is your firm, and your firm sells to specialty stores, mass merchandisers, or online. And then each of those sells to consumers. So a very simple distribution channel. So in Markstrat, you designate this price right here called retail price. That is not the price that you get. You get this one up here. It's called resale price maintenance, basically, where the firm can specify the price at retail. It is legal in a lot of the world. It is currently mostly illegal in the United States. I say mostly because there's some newer tech situations that they have challenged it. And it's also gone in and out of legality several times in the last 120 years. But anyway, it's currently illegal in the United States, legal in a lot of the world. Markstrat comes from Europe, and this is the price that you set. So what that means is you need to understand the cut that each channel partner takes. So on this slide, you can see the example I worked up here where you have a retail price of $400 and your production cost is $125 on each one. And so what that means is you specify $400. If you look at the specialty store column there, you'll see average discount of none. That means they put it on the shelf at $400. They take 40% off of the selling price, which is $40, which is also $160, which means your price to the retailer, the money that you get, is $240, not $400. If it costs you $125 to make each one of those, you make $115 gross margin on each one. The mass merchandisers, if you think about the Walmarts, the Targets, and those guys, they're all about low price. So even though you say $400, they're going to take 10% off of it to put it on the shelf. So that means you say $400, but they put it on the shelf at $360, 10% off. But they only take 30% off of the $360, which is $108, leaving $252 price to the retailer. You spend $125 to make it, and you make $127. To finish up here, the online stores will knock off 5%, but they will take 30%, leaving your price to them at $266, and you make $141 per unit. Important thing is to look at that channel partner cut every time, and remember that your firm does not get the retail price, the price that you specify. You will be able to run ads in the first go-round here. They are only to build brand awareness, so everybody has that opportunity. In future ones, you'll be able to work on creating a brand position. You'll be able to do various other things with your advertising. We will get into that more deeply when we're here in class. But for right now, you're going to be planning on running purely brand awareness advertising, and you'll be choosing which segment you want to place those ads, to target those ads with, and it's just a little drop-down menu, very easy to do. You'll also decide where you want to send your commercial team. In America, we call that your sales force. But the commercial team decisions are, again, a little drop-down. You just put the numbers in a box. Each salesperson is channel specific. So that means they're either going to the mass merchandisers or to the specialty stores or whatever, online guys, or, and they are also brand specific. So they're selling one brand to a channel. You can move them around without any sort of penalty. You can also hire and fire them. And Markstrat, your printout will tell you what your costs are to hire or fire. You have a budget every time that you'll be looking at, and it is, it says right here, it's 40% of your last year's earnings, and you'll be able to just see it update in real time where you are. Markstrat provides all kinds of financial information for you in addition to market research that you'll be able to get about the customers, the channel partners, even your competitors. You can get profit and loss statements that are consolidated by period, like this example here. You can get them by brand, so you can see which of my brands are contributing the most, and just slice and dice it up as much as that you want. Very quickly, let me finish up with the getting started. Hopefully, you're all ready to log on. So you sign in at stratxsimulations.com, put in your participation activation key, and hopefully you'll get that little box over to the right, and it will ask you for what your for your activation key, your industry name, your team name, and your password. Joanna and I will provide your team name, your password, and the industry name will be Albatross. Once you log in, up will pop a screen that looks kind of like this, and every one of those boxes you can click on. My recommendation is probably that you start out with the one called Company Dashboard. That's an easy place to start because your company has already been operating. You will have results from what we would consider time period 0. So you'll be able to see what was sold previously, where it went, and that kind of stuff. All that's on the dashboard. The simulation will also ask you to choose a name for your firm. So you might as well get ready, because whoever logs on first is going to see this box, and it's going to ask you, what is your name? I would encourage you to continually check your budget. You don't want to go over budget this first time in particular. If you do, Markstrat will automatically cut it back, and it will start with advertising. And my guess is you probably don't want it to just universally whack your advertising. This little slide here looks like it's covered by me, but in the upper right corner in every box, there's a little icon, and you click on it, and that's how you can check your budget at any time. Another thing to be looking for is Markstrat will talk to you or send you notices about errors and warnings. Sometimes something they think is an error is something that you intend to do. In general, errors are more severe, like you forgot to do any of the decisions for a brand that's out on the market. Warnings are more often things like you're a little bit off on or you haven't decided everything you want to buy for marketing research, like on this one, and they aren't sort of fatal flaws. We will have a little time at the beginning of class, right before I run the first set of decisions. So if any of you are running into trouble, from 7:30 on or so, I'll be there and I can help you with this. With that, good luck to all of you. I look forward to seeing you soon, and we will crank through the Markstrat simulation. Hopefully learn a lot and have a good time too.